Huckabee. Two men stand up to insanity on America's campuses. Actress Candace Cameron Bure and amazing acrobats duo Transcend perform. That's Trey Corley in the Music City Connection. And I'm your announcer, Keith Bilbrey. And now, here's Mike Huckabee.
Oh, boy, we're going to have fun tonight. I hope you are ready for it. But let me say, some things aren't fun, because just a few hours after we taped last week's show, and just a few miles from our studio right here, a man entered a Waffle House in Nashville and then randomly shot and murdered 4 people and wounded several others. Now, I'm not going to give you the name of the deranged young man who did the killing, because it is my policy to never help mass murderers become famous or ever see their names or faces in the papers or on TV. But there is someone I hope who becomes famous, and that's James Shaw Jr., a young father who grabbed a gun and threw it over the counter, causing the killer to flee. The gunman evaded capture for more than a day before being arrested and charged with the murders. He's got a long history of mental illness, and the firearms had actually been taken away from him before, but his father appeared to have given them back. But enough about the killer. I want to focus on James Shaw Jr., an honest-to-God hero. He acted instinctively and instantly. He first risked his own life, for had that gunman been able to reload, the next victim would have been James Shaw. Secondly, he saved the lives of other people at that Waffle House. They owe their very existence to the actions of someone who exemplified what Jesus said was the greatest form of love. There is no greater love than to lay down one's life for his friends. But that wasn't the only thing in the news. It was a big week for other things. French President Emmanuel Macron came to Washington, and he was the toast of the town and the honoree at President Trump's very first state dinner. The two presidents enjoy a deep bond of friendship, and that's even without having James Taylor crooning, "You've Got a Friend." First Lady Melania Trump was universally praised for her fashion savvy, the elegant touch at the dinner, and the menu, which, by the way, included jambalaya. I love me some jambalaya. I'll be honest with you, I was kind of disappointed that I didn't get invited to the dinner. I was wondering if they had any leftovers. I know Nancy Pelosi thought that $2,500 bonuses and pay raises were just crumbs, but folks, leftover jambalaya is not crumbs, I'm telling you now. But I think the reason that I wasn't invited is because Melania was afraid that I'd go around to all the tables and say, "Hey, are you going to eat that?" In another story, in the United Kingdom, 23-month-old Alfie Evans was deemed by the bureaucrats running Britain's health system to be of no great value. And despite offers to fly him to Italy for treatment, the government healthcare system said no. And they turned off the life support. In defiance, the little bugger has breathed on his own for the past several days, but the Brits still refuse to let him leave their control and allow his parents to pursue treatment. So America, do you still want the government to run the entire healthcare system? Didn't think so. By the way, also in the news was Dr. Ronnie Jackson, the White House doctor, beloved by 3 presidents and their families, and who had been nominated to become the VA secretary. But after the typical hateful rumor and gossip gush from the usual and predictable anonymous sources, after they got finished impugning his previously pristine reputation, he withdrew his nomination. Now, some of his swampland critics said he didn't have any real executive experience to lead a big organization. Some Democrats have suggested that we need someone with real experience in executive management of something big. So I think maybe we ought to get somebody who has been a community organizer. Some of you will get that at some point tonight. And in Washington, they still don't realize how stupid they seem to be and how not stupid the rest of the country really is, who can see right through these games of shame. Well, before we get to my first guest, I want you to see what happened when he visited a college campus to discuss with students the issue of American troops being sent to our southern border.
I'm Calvin Phillips with Campus Reform. Today we're at UC Santa Barbara talking to students about President Trump's recent decision to send troops to the southern border. And will their opinions on that move change when they find out President Obama actually did the same thing a few years ago? Let's find out. So President Trump recently announced he's going to be sending a few thousand troops down to the border to try and secure the influx of people coming across illegally. Do you support sending troops down to the border? Yes or no? Okay, so 3 no's.
I feel like it's not justified, mostly because it is a totally uncalled for act of power.
Definitely disapprove. I don't know. I think it just puts a bad light on America.
Not productive. I'm not a huge fan of the military to begin with. We're spending way too much money on that. I think it would be a complete waste of money.
It's not projected correctly, so it's not resonating well with me, at least.
I don't think it's good to send, militarized troops to people who are coming in unarmed.
Did you know that President Obama did the exact same thing when he was president?
Honestly, I'm not super up to date with politics. I didn't know that, so.
I did not know that.
Is that surprising?
I mean, yeah, I guess, yeah. I would say, yeah, that's kind of surprising.
When President Obama did it, I felt that there was, I suppose, different coverage as to what the intentions were.
I don't know anything about that personally, so the difference is definitely with publicity and false information.
So I guess I would have to read up more about the intentions behind Trump's versus the intentions behind Obama.
That's right. Future leaders of the nation, President Obama and Bush, sent troops to our southern border long before the current president even considered it. Well, that's just one of the many things that our college students are not being taught. Here to tell us why and what he's doing to expose bias and abuse on the nation's college campuses is the media director for Campus Reform, Cabot Phillips. Cabot, great having you here. That was fun watching that. Yeah. You know what amazes me, Cabot? Parents are spending tens of thousands of dollars a year and these kids are racking up debt, and they really don't have a clue about the world they're living in.
They don't understand the basics of what it means to be an American, to be an adult, having debate and looking at the issues, not just on who's proposing them. And I think if we're going to begin to fix the problem on our college campuses, it's going to have to start with educating people on the history of our country, the Constitution, the First Amendment, how it applies and how it protects ideas that maybe make you a little uncomfortable. That's what free speech is there for.
But I'm surprised at how little knowledge they have of current events. Yeah. And as you said, of the Constitution, I wondered, do they still teach 9th grade civics? Is that still part of the curriculum?
They've begun to replace a lot of the required history courses, required literature courses, with these new social justice initiatives. And this happens around the country. It's not just an isolated incidents, where they've now said, okay, we'll replace some of those traditional courses with new ones, like, feminist logic, whatever, dance theory, all these new courses. They call them social justice courses. And what
I was a major in dance theory, so be careful.
I can tell.
So,
does anyone in this room want to hire a person coming out of college from the land of trigger warnings, safe spaces? And the first reaction for a lot of people when they hear an idea they don't like is to scream and yell and shut it down. And that is dangerous. That's why everyone should be concerned about what's happening.
Campus Reform, which you're a part of, you do these videos. You go to campuses, so you ask these questions. I'm sure that it doesn't always make you popular, does it?
It does not. And really all it takes for not being popular on campus is being not a liberal. So going to campus with ideas that are trying to get people to think outside the box, and it gets people angry. They try to shut you down. And it's not just me, it's any student that pushes back against that narrative that's coming from the classroom. We have one of our campus correspondents out in California. She let people know, hey, I'm a conservative, can I get a comment for a story? People chased her to her car with bats and lead pipes. They're at a protest, they're beating her car.
All in the name of tolerance.
All in the name of tolerance. Yeah. One student in Northern Arizona, you'll appreciate this, lost points on her assignment because she used the word mankind, which is apparently not gender neutral, and so she lost points because of that. But this is a trend, it's a growing trend, and again, we need to begin to hold hold these people accountable or it's not going to change.
And parents are paying really good money for that, aren't they?
They are. And any other business, if colleges were run like a business, most of them would be out of business. Their doors would shut because people would realize they aren't doing their jobs.
There are parents who are making big sacrifices. They're working really hard, working extra jobs so they can send their kids to college and frankly make us laugh at what they don't know.
I think the purpose is not to expose, oh, these people are uninformed, but to expose there's a systemic problem here that needs to be addressed. And if no one knows what's going on, then no one's going to care enough to want to fix it. And I think a lot of this stems also from identity politics. Everyone is reduced now to their gender, their race, their orientation, and it's all about this idea of, privilege. We have, male privilege, straight privilege, white privilege. I'm sure he has Huckabee privilege, everything out there. Anything under the sun, anything under the sun.
Do you find, Cabot, that a lot of times mainstream media people ignore what you try to bring to them? Do they just not want to hear it? They don't want to expose it? They don't want to have anything to do with it because it points out some faults in our system?
If there were liberal students that were being shut down, and if there were conservatives rioting against liberal speakers on campus every week, I promise you the mainstream media would be covering it.
Yeah.
But because it's conservative ideas that are being stifled, because it's conservative speakers being shut down, much of the media doesn't want to cover it because it would acknowledge that it's their own side being intolerant. And so we would encourage, we want anyone to just try and talk about this because it's not a partisan issue. The future of our country is something everyone should be concerned with. And if there is a failure in our system, and in this case, I think college, most people agree, is failing our young people, then we should work together across the aisle to defend free speech, to defend ideas, defend our future. It's not a partisan issue.
No, it really isn't. And I want to say thanks for what you're doing to go out there and just educate students and educate the rest of America about what's happening on college campuses. By the way, if you want to know more about Cabot Phillips and campus reform, visit campusreform.org. Their powerful articles and honest journalism will show you why they are the #1 watchdog of our nation's higher education system. Again, their address, campusreform.org. All right, Keith, why don't you tell us if we've got some other stuff coming up in the show tonight? I bet we do.
I would absolutely love to. We have a big show tonight. Next, author Everett Piper tries to explain Generation Snowflake. And later, the amazing trapeze talents of Duo Transcend. And actress Candace Cameron Bure. It's all coming up on Huckabee.
Well, as president of Oklahoma Wesleyan University, my next guest blew up the internet. Well, I mean, not like blew it up with bombs or anything, but he blew it up with an op-ed called "This is Not a Daycare, It's a University." His latest book is called, surprise, Not a Daycare. Would you please welcome Dr. Everett Piper.
Governor, thank you.
Dr. Piper, great having you here.
Honored.
I think in light of us having that conversation with Cabot, it's perfect to say you're a college president. You had an extraordinary impact writing an essay after a student at your campus thought he was triggered because a chapel speaker bothered him. What happened?
Well, Oklahoma Wesleyan University is a bold and unapologetic Christian university. We're conservative, we're Christian, and we don't apologize for it. After a required chapel service 2 years ago Thanksgiving, one of our students came forward to the speaker afterwards and said, "You made me feel uncomfortable today. You made me and my peers feel singled out, and I don't like what you said." The speaker came to me and wanted me to know that the kid had played the victimization card. Mm-hmm. And I said, "Well, what was your speech on?" I wasn't in chapel that day. He said, "You won't believe this. It was 1 Corinthians 13. Now, for those who don't know, that's the quintessential love chapter of the Bible. Love is patient, love is kind. And this kid felt offended by it. At my university, it triggered him. So I wrote a response, and I said, "Young man, if that feeling of discomfort you had, it was called your conscience. You might want to attend to it. And if you expect us to issue trigger warnings," I said, "If you expect us to issue trigger warnings before altar calls, you might want to go to a different institution because this is a university, it's not a daycare." And thus the op-ed, it went viral, everybody cared, and I'm here talking to you
It
today.
most certainly went viral. You said some things in there that were incredibly bold, and I noted one of them. It was that Oklahoma Wesleyan is not a safe place. Rather, it's a place to learn that life isn't about you, but about others. And you tell people in the essay, if these things bother you, this school is not where you ought to be. I've never met a college president who said, maybe you ought to go somewhere else.
Well, our enrollment has tripled.
Is that right? Tripled. Parents are dying to send their kids to a place that won't ruin them.
Absolutely. Our culture is hungry for somebody to confront this nonsense. Our culture is hungry, parents are hungry for someone to look our culture and their kids in the eye and say, this isn't going to be a safe place, it's going to be a good place. In fact, we're told of the great lion Aslan by C.S. Lewis, that Aslan is not safe, but he's good. So let's paraphrase that. The great lion of the liberal arts, the great lion of the academy, the great lion of the college and university, the great lion of the ivory tower is not safe, but it's good. There's a huge difference between good education and safe education. I'd much rather have the first and not the second.
Mm-hmm. I'm a conservative and I'm a believer, but I want to have conversations with people who are far to the left of me, but I want them to be a thoughtful conversation. I don't want to say something and have the person running for a popsicle, Play-Doh, or a puppy because I said something that, you know, hurt their feelings. I want to be able for them to say to me the most honest thing they can, because I think that's how we build relationships. We're not doing that on college campuses today. Why not?
So many of our colleges have lost the standard of truth. The subtitle to my book is The Devastating Consequences of Abandoning Truth. Truth with a capital T. Veritas, Latin for truth. That used to be the objective of the academy. A degree shouldn't be about opinions. A degree should be about learning what's true. Pol Pot and Mao and Robespierre and Chavez and Hitler and Mussolini, all the despots of history had opinions, but it didn't end well. Jesus told us, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Education should be about truth, that objective standard, that measuring rod outside of those things being measured, to quote C.S. Lewis, or you can do no measuring. When we abandon truth as the objective of the academy, we get chaos. We get vengeance and victimization rather than virtue and veritas, and that's where we are as an academic enterprise today.
I grew up during the 60s and early 70s. Berkeley, California was the center of the free speech movement. Now it's the center of the shut down any speech that doesn't agree with.
And Berkeley, the birthplace of the free speech movement, is the example, the quintessential example today of ideological fascism rather than intellectual freedom. You must be one of them, you must think like them, you must walk like them, you must talk like them, you must agree with them, or you're verboten, you will be expelled, you will be silenced, you're kicked off campus. That is not freedom, that's fascism. And that's what we see at Berkeley. I've got news for you. Berkeley thinks it's the birthplace of the free speech movement. Bethlehem was the birthplace of free speech, not Berkeley.
Very well said. Beautiful. Well, it's important, I think, that we hear voices like yours, and even more valuable is to find out that when you took the stand that you took, bold, clear, unapologetic, your enrollment tripled. You have parents now who want to send their students, and students who want to come there because they don't feel like they're going to just be injected with somebody else's thinking, and they'll have the opportunity to think for themselves. Dr. Piper, the book is phenomenal, and I hope people, if they loved your essay, they'll love the book, Not a Daycare. And I want to say to our audience, if you're concerned how the American university system has gone completely off the rails, Everett Piper is offering truth and hope, and it's kind of refreshing. You can get your copy of his book, Not a Daycare, The Devastating Consequences of Abandoning Truth, from your favorite bookseller right now, or order it online, and I hope you will do it. All right, Dr. Piper, thank you for being here.
Governor, thank you.
We will let Keith tell us what's next.
Well, later on the show, Candace Cameron Ray reveals why kind is the new classy. And Mike will break down the news headlines you may have missed. But first, the dazzling trapeze talents of Duo Transcend. It's all coming up on Huckabee.
The writer of Pilgrim's Progress, John Bunyan, once said, "You have not lived today until you have done something for someone who can never repay you." So why not take his advice and live a little today? Call the number on your screen or visit the website for Samaritan's Purse, experiencing the blessing that you receive from helping someone who can never repay you, but will be forever grateful. Now, our next guests are quite the pair. She was a musical theater actor. He was an acrobatic performer. And they met, just like most couples do, while cliff diving. I'm not making that up. Yeah, that's how most of us meet. Well, I want you to meet this absolutely amazing acrobatic team, Duo Transcend. Here they are. Let's hear it for Duo Transcend. Wow. Oh, my soul. Mary, Ty, it's great to have you guys here. I mean, you prove that you really trust your husband.
I do.
You better.
I don't know what I did to deserve it, but...
I tell you what, you better always hope that he's in a good mood, right?
I know, right?
Wow. I mean, we're just spellbound by what we've just seen.
Oh, thank you so much.
You guys really met cliff diving?
Yes.
We did, yeah.
So you knew you were destined for danger.
Yes, it started with danger and it continues with danger, so it's just part of our life.
I see you do this, and I know you've done it many times. The question that comes to my mind, what were you thinking the first time you did that?
You know, we were young, it was fun, and then it turned into a job. And so we're like, man, I guess we better just keep this going.
Yeah, what's fun is we get to work together and travel the world together.
You know, Tyson, I know you come from a family of acrobats, people who have done this. Your background was musical theater. Did your parents say to you, honey, we love you, Please. He might drop you on your head. Did they tell you that?
Well, luckily my parents really love Tice a lot, and
They
my mom
must.
has said multiple times he's the only one that she trusts enough to do this with me.
Well, obviously she truly does. You guys are absolutely amazing. And by the way, Duo Transcend is going to be coming back later. And if you thought that performance up there on the trapeze was difficult, you're not going to believe the next one. These two guys are absolute showstoppers, and that's why they were invited to audition for America's Got Talent. And if you want to know how well they did, you can watch it on NBC May the 29th. Do not miss that. May 29th on NBC. You can also keep up with them on social media at Duo_Transcend. Let me give you that again, at Duo_Transcend. It's on your screen. And if you'd like to find out where you can see them in action, just like our audience here has, visit maryandtice.com. I want us to give another really big hand to Duo Transcend. Thank you, guys. Take it away, Keith. You get up on that trapeze.
Alrighty, let's go. Later in the show, we go to Shepherd, Michigan for our sweet edition of Our Kind of Town. Next, she's an actor, producer, and author. That's Candace Cameron Bure on the power of living graciously. There's lots of Huckabee straight ahead.
Welcome back. Well, if you stop on my website this week, you discovered a San Francisco court has ruled this week that an ape, that's right, an ape, could file a lawsuit under the Constitution. Yes, I said it was California, and I said that they ruled that an ape could file a lawsuit. I wish I was making this stuff up, but honestly, you can learn a lot more common sense on the news at MikeHuckabee.com. Follow me on Twitter, at GovMikeHuckabee. Seriously, you better do it, and I'm not monkeying around. All right, let's not wait for you to visit my website to take a look at some of the news stories from this week, and there are some I cannot wait to address in a little segment we like to call In Case You Missed It. That's right, we read the news so you don't have to. And from our That Could Never Happen in a Million Years file, after 7 decades of animosity, kidnappings, and almost constant danger, the demilitarized zone that divides the Korean Peninsula was a place where two nations actually came together to begin talk of peace. Summit meetings are often private affairs, but this one featured Kim Jong-un and President Moon of South Korea in front of their citizens and the world, shaking hands, crossing the line into each other's country, even holding hands as they walked. While former South Korean presidents had traveled to Pyongyang to meet Kim's father when he ruled, this was the first time since 1953 that a North Korean leader had ever entered into South Korea. Let me put it in perspective. I wasn't even born when this was going on. In fact, there was not an end to the war. It was only an armistice. They were at war until they signed this peace agreement. So for 65 years, they've technically still been at war until now. Now, near the end of the day, when they were meeting, leaders Kim and Moon sat for half an hour in private conversation, a discussion over that maybe was just over some tea. Nobody could hear all of it was going on, but who could have imagined that taking place? So how does this bode for President Donald Trump's upcoming visit to North Korea? Well, we hope the peace talks and nuclear disarmament negotiations that started on this historic day are going to be sealed, along with the opening of the North Korea entire nation to freedom and prosperity by the time President Trump heads home. We certainly hope so. Another story we've been following. I'm sure you remember the song, Happy Days Are Here Again. If you do, you're very, very old. Now, that's been the unofficial theme of the Democratic Party since Franklin Roosevelt and his 1932 campaign. Well, everybody ought to be singing it these days, no matter what their political persuasion is. Initial claims for state unemployment benefits fell to 209,000 for the week that ended April 21st. After seasonal adjustments, that is the lowest level in nearly half a century. 14 states, that's right, lowest in All this time. But here's this. 14 states have set record lows for unemployment, and giants like California and Texas are at 4.1 and 3.9% respectively. Idaho, Iowa, Maine, Nebraska, New Hampshire, North Dakota, and Wisconsin all have unemployment rates that are lower than 3%. Hawaii holds the nation's lowest rate at only 2.1% of people unemployed. Now, what that means is this. A tight job market means businesses are competing for workers rather than workers competing for scarce jobs. What does that mean? More money for people in the workforce. It's good news for Americans. I don't care what your color is, what your gender, what your creed is. That is good news for every American, and we all should be happy about it. And I'm sure you've heard when Kanye West tweeted that Donald Trump was his brother, liberal America lost its mind. And when he also said he loved the way that a black conservative, Candace Owens, thought, well, you'd have thought the end of the world had come. So what was the real evil or threat that people in social media space were reacting to? A couple of African Americans, one famous, one young and female, both free thinkers, challenging the political beliefs of urban America and the traditional Democratic Party. Now, rather than that taking free speech and offering reasonable and rational public debate over this incredible offense to the left, writers in Rolling Stone have declared Kanye West to be a threat and someone who has sold out for the perks of white privilege. They do know Kanye is African American, right? Even after Kanye offered another tweet that said, for people in my life, the idea of Trump is pretty much a 50-50 split, but I don't tell a Hillary supporter not to support Hillary. There was no forgiveness in pop culture for his brazen words and his display of an autographed Trump hat. On Friday, Kanye tweeted that he had not done enough research to call himself a conservative, but he refused to be enslaved to monolithic thought. So I guess for a part of society that claims they own the moral high ground on just about everything, the liberal intelligentsia and their pop culture agents sure don't have much room for freedom of thought. Hey, I might just tweet about that sometime tonight. Well, I hope my review of those select stories will help spark you to keep digging deeper on your own for the truth. Because a well-informed citizenry is the best guardian that we really do have for the Republic. My next guest is something very rare in show business, a former child star who has her head on straight. Now, America fell in love with her as DJ Tanner on the sitcom Full House. She grew up to become a busy actress and producer, co-host of The View, star of the reboot Fuller House, a best-selling author, and most importantly, a mother of three and a champion of Christian values in, of all places, Hollywood. She's got a brand new book. It's called Kind is the New Classy, The Power of Living Graciously. Would you please welcome Candace Cameron Bure. Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm delighted to have you. Your book is really awesome. It's a simple message that people ought to be nice. I mean, how hard should that be?
You think it should be simple. It is simple to be nice, but it actually takes more effort than being mean.
Does it really?
It does. I think that's why it feels countercultural. I think more people tend to be angry. And so I want to put the spotlight back on kindness. And even though it does take effort, it is very simple to extend kindness to one another.
And it actually melts differences. One of the things that really touched me in your book, one of the opening scenes, if you will, was with one of your co-stars on The View, somebody who, by the way, this will surprise people both in the audience and home. I love Whoopi Goldberg. I really do.
So do
I think she's a beautiful person and one of the most underappreciated talents of our day. An incredible actress and just terrific. You talk about a moment where you were just having a bad day, huddled up in a closet, crying.
Yep.
And of all the people that came and offered you comfort, it was Whoopi Goldberg.
It was. Yeah, it was the morning that the San Bernardino shootings had happened, and 14 people had died, and all the Los Angeles schools were on lockdown. And I was in New York that day about to go on live television. We had just gotten the news, and my children were at home in Los Angeles. They were on lockdown in the schools, and I felt so panicked because I couldn't get to them, I couldn't reach them, and I wasn't home. I was thousands of miles away. And I just didn't know how I was about to get through a live show. And I was in my closet, in my dressing room closet, praying and crying all at the same time, because it was the furthest place away from everyone, or so it seemed. But this persistent knock just kept on going. And when I finally opened the door, because I really didn't want to, Whoopi stood there and she asked if she could come in, and I said yes, and she just opened her arms and she said, "Come here, come here." And she just hugged me, and I cried into her shoulder, and she just wouldn't let me go until I let go. And it was so beautiful. And she said, "Listen, I've got you. I've got you. Speak from your heart. I'm not gonna let you fall out there, and we'll get through it."
See, that's a side of her that a lot of people, I think, have never seen. They just see that she's highly opinionated, and she is. But I love her for that, because she's very open about it.
Yeah.
And why can't we have that kind of relationship with people with whom we may not share political views, and we may even poke at each other about it, but still, there's a human kindness that bridges all that. Why can't we do that?
Well, I think we can, and one of the ways that I try to do that, and one of the things I would often think about when I was co-hosting The View and we were discussing that, was to think about having empathy for the person that I was talking to, and compassion. Anytime we would get into a debate, of course I had my opinion, but I wanted to be open enough to listen to theirs, and also have an empathy and understanding of why they have the viewpoint that they do. Maybe there are circumstances or their upbringing. And so it helps soften my heart to say, well, this may not be what I think is true if I have a biblical worldview, but I can understand why you have your view. And I want to be there to listen to that person. And that really helped me a lot. And it's something that helps me with every conversation that I have with people.
Candace, you are very well known as a person who has taken your faith with you wherever you go, whether it's to the movie set or television, wherever it is. But with something that I learned about you that I was not aware of, and that is that you did not grow up in a strong, Christian home. It was like you were 12 years old when your parents even started going to church.
That's right. I know most people, because of my brother as well, Kirk, think that we grew up in a Christian home, but my parents actually had gotten separated when I was 12, and a friend had invited them to go to church in hopes that maybe some counseling would help them work through their marriage, which it did. And they'll be celebrating 50 years very soon.
Wonderful.
Marriage, yes.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So it wasn't until I was 12 that I started going to church, and I say that I became a Christian at 12 because I did give my heart to Jesus, but I really wasn't walking with Christ until my early 20s, when my faith really became my own.
You've made the comment that if it were not for your faith, you would be an emotional wreck. What do you mean by that?
Well, it's so easy to let our emotions get the best of us. And if it weren't for my faith, I wouldn't have the Holy Spirit. I wouldn't have the joy, peace, and patience, and kindness, and goodness, and gentleness, and self-control that the Holy Spirit gives me. And so I would be an emotional wreck, and those emotions would just be at the forefront of it all.
Candace, I think your book is going to be a real gift to people, not just women, but every person who says, boy, this is a mean world out there. How can we be a little nicer to each other? And that's what it is all about. I want to thank Candace Cameron Bure for her kindness in visiting with us. Kind is the new classy. It's available at all major booksellers, and you can catch up with everything that Candace is doing, and it's a lot she's doing. Go to her Instagram account at Candace C. Bure, and I hope you'll do that, and be sure and get this book, that Kind is the New Classy, because it really is. All right, Keith, let us know what's coming up.
Well, up next, it's Our Kind of Town. Shepherd, Michigan, plus Duo Transcend returns to the stage to perform another spectacular feat. It's all coming up on Huckabee.
welcome back. All right, Trey Corley is standing by to tell us about the hat of higher education that he is wearing this week.
Yes, sir. This week, Governor, I'm wearing the hat and colors of Lee University right here in Cleveland, Tennessee. And I just want to say, I know, right? Cleveland, Tennessee, baby. Right here, Lee University. And I do want to say thank you very much to Lee University for sending in this very slammin' cool hat. And we celebrate them as well as they have their 100th anniversary. How amazing is that, Governor?
That is pretty cool. 100 years old. Wow. Happy 100th anniversary to Lee University. By the way, if you'd like to know more about their campus and internet-based classes for bachelor's and master's degree, you can go to leeuniversity.edu. And our thanks to Michael Smith and the Lee University Bookstore for submitting the hats. So keep up the good work in Cleveland, Tennessee. Now, turning our attention a little further north, and I mean like way further north, if you like maple syrup as much as I do, and I gotta be honest with you, I never had any. This is true. I'd never had real maple syrup until about 10 years ago. I really hadn't. I'd had the phony kind. And once I had the real deal, I ain't ever going back, guys, ever. I mean, it was amazing how good it is. Well, I've got just the town for you if you like maple syrup. There's a place up in central Michigan, maybe the sweetest location on the American map, and it's why Shepherd, Michigan is this week's Our Kind of Town.
Where's the sweetest town anywhere around? It's the blink and you'll miss it town of Shepherd, Michigan. And believe me, you'll want to keep your eyes wide open for this one. The lovely town of Shepherd features trees that seem to grow buckets every February. But it's because maple syrup is the first crop harvested in Michigan each year. So while it's a sweet surprise to visitors, it's a way of life for hometown folk. Every April for the last 60 years, the 3-day-long Shepherd Maple Syrup Festival is attended by thousands of people, itching to enjoy Shepherd's tasty maple syrup-infused food, sweets, and without a doubt, pancakes slathered in syrup and butter. The townsfolk, including many retirees, volunteer to make over 2 tons of delectable sausages for festival visitors to enjoy as well. And why just eat your maple syrup? You can enjoy maple cider and other maple beverages expertly crafted by talented local maple brew meisters. Maple cookies, ice cream cones, and candies are readily available to polish off your dining and wire up your kids. It always makes for a lively car ride on your way out of town. On your last day of the festival, there's a pancake eating contest, which you can join for free if you have the discipline to diet for a few days afterwards. In the middle of all the maple-drenched festivities, Shepherd holds the Festival of Quilts. Their spring is well underway. You can enjoy the artistic work of the quilters, and if you do get cold, well, they've got you covered. Shepherd, Michigan is a small town that is, dare we say, sweet to visit any time of year. But if you go in the spring, you'll see all of its personality on full display. And we know you'll agree it's our kind of town.
I love this part of our show where we feature these wonderful towns across America that make America what it is. By the way, I don't think your doctor is going to recommend you go to the maybe the Shepherd Maple Syrup Festival, but some of you are going to go anyway, and I have a feeling you're going to have a great time. Our special thanks to the Shepherd Maple Syrup Festival, who's celebrating their 60th anniversary, and to the Shepherd Journal for helping us show off their nice town, as well as to Patty Aslan for suggesting that sweet, sweet town. If you're anywhere near Shepherd, the Syrup Festival is happening right now. And if you go, hey, why don't you send me a bottle of that delicious maple syrup? You have not because you hint not, so I have now hinted. All right, Keith, can you tell us about anything better than maple syrup on that big stack of pancakes?
Let me think. Well, Governor, I'm partial to melted butter. So together, we've got the perfect blend for breakfast. Coming up next, take a nostalgia spin around the roller rink. Then see what Duo Transcend does on roller skates that boggles the mind.
Hey, when you were a kid, did you love to roller skate? Because if you were lucky, you had a roller rink in your city or town where you could skate to live music. Well, while today's teens skate to the latest hit songs and DJ beats, there's still a place in California where you can still roll to the sound of organ music.
Every Tuesday night I feature live organ music, and I've done that since the day that I took over. I'm Dominic Cangelosi, the owner of Moonlight Rollerway in Glendale, California.
Roller skating has been a part of American cultural life since James Plimpton created the four-wheel skate in 1863. And while Dominic isn't quite that old, he's been playing the Hammond organ for over 70 years. Every Tuesday night, you'll find him playing here from 8 till 10:30.
I love music, and I love to play for people who appreciate the sound of the Hammond. I keep it because it's nostalgic, and there's a lot of skaters that like to skate to this music.
Dominic is just one of a handful of rink organists still playing in the U.S. He's a living national treasure, and the Moonlight Rollerway is a designated historical landmark, the last roller rink in California featuring live organ music.
In the 1940s and into the 50s, there was live organ music, and that's all they played for the roller skating sessions. When the rock and roll and the Beatles and Elvis Presley started to come into the picture, roller skating rinks started to phase out the organ.
So what style of music does Dominic play for skaters? Bouncy foxtrots, tangos, marches, polkas, even a waltz.
We turn the lights out, put the mirror ball on. I play some slower songs.
The crowd is an interesting mix of old-timers who've been coming for decades and younger skaters who've discovered how much fun it is to skate to songs that were popular before they were born.
I'd love to have you come down and skate at Moonlight and listen to the Hammond. It's great sound. It's wonderful music to skate to, and the people are wonderful. Thank you for coming to Moonlight Rollerway.
Our thanks to producer Paul Forrest for that wonderful story. And if you're in Southern California, be sure and drop in on Dominic any Tuesday evening for a classic skate to his live organ music. If you want more details, go to moonlightrollerway.com. As you know, sometimes I join our musical guests and play bass with them, but I made it very clear that I would not be joining with Mary and Tice for their acrobatic feats tonight. So that brave couple from the trapeze earlier tonight, Mary and Tice, are going to be back without me. They're going to show you something completely different that, well, maybe you can do this on roller skates. Don't try. But please welcome back the amazing duo Transcend. Start, Hart, come on. I wanted to say mop in aisle 3. Wow. Well, our special thanks tonight to Cabot Phillips, Dr. Everett Piper, Candace Cameron Bure, our friends in Shepherd, Michigan, and at the Moonlight Rollerway, as well as the outrageously talented Mary and Tice from Duo Transcend. Amazing people. I hope you'll join us next week. We have Duck Dynasty's Uncle Si, Ambassador Sam Brownback, national radio host Dennis Prager, and country artist Lucas Hogue will all be here. Lucas is going to sing, and he's going to shoot an apple off my head, as he thinks he is anyway. Until then, thank you for joining us. Good night, everybody, and God bless. Have a great week.